and we have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Irish eyes are smiling. I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, wearing green for Ireland and black for Germany and Poland.
Okay.
More on that.
Because Ireland, as you know, this week declared its independence from the Catholic Church by voting overwhelmingly to open marriage to same-sex couples in their constitution.
Could Australia be next?
And then what about the Boy Scouts? The head of the Scouts said it's time to end the ban on gay Scout masters, but discrimination by troops run by anti-gay religions, he wants to let that continue.
I'm not sure he wants to, but feels he has to. We'll discuss. Alabama is again ordered to license gay couples statewide, but it is on hold until the U.S. Supreme Court rules in late June.
Michael Sam is set to play pro football.
A 14-year-old transgender boy in Southern California has taken his own life despite parental support and connection to support groups.
The U.S. Special Envoy for LGBT rights visited Jamaica.
The New York Times in its Sunday magazine profiled a true gay hero, Caleb Orozco of Belize, who's leading a very lonely and lengthy legal challenge to the nation's anti-buggery law.
And another celebrity clarifies his gay past.
These annotations on their lives are fascinating.
Yes.
But we start in Ireland because everything is coming up four-leaf clovers in Ireland.
This really did put a smile on the face of the LGBT world and many other people, I think. It really, I mean, we kind of anticipated that it was going to pass, although things were said to be closing in the final weeks of the campaign. Ireland has to vote as a nation when they change family law, because it's all written up in the Constitution. And guess who wrote the Constitution? Some archbishop. I mean, seriously. I
yes.
mean, the Catholic Church had a huge role in writing the Constitution. So anytime they want to change things about divorce, they haven't changed about abortion, et cetera, they have to have a national referendum on these things.
So, yes, the polls showed overwhelming support for same-sex marriage, but we've seen polls close at the last minute before. What's really interesting to me, and this news, led the news broadcasts around the world. This was huge. It's like people suddenly were noticing that this was happening. But as you dig down, what really interested me was the campaign. Mm-hmm. That in fact they have been working on this for years, LGBT activists and allies in Ireland. They have been building up to this, and they ran a very smart campaign. They put activists in every inch of the country. They went door to door. They ran extensive television commercials. They thought out the campaign and how it should be presented. This was not a quick fly-by-night thing. This was a very serious and well thought out grassroots campaign.
And we should say, because one of the historical things here is that this is the first country to adopt same-sex marriage by referendum.
Which we have mixed feelings about, because we, as we often say here, what we want is for our relationships to be recognized as our human right under constitutional protections everywhere.
I hear that might happen in the United States of America.
Maybe.
Well, we're going to talk about Australia, but the conservative prime minister there, who was anti-gay, despite his lesbian sister, he says, and I don't want a referendum here. We can do this. Our Constitution allows us to change the law.
Well, theoretically, we would like not to have people's human rights voted on by the population anywhere. But given that that's what they are required to do in Ireland, to make a constitutional change, which is what they did with this, not just a law, but a constitutional change, it's brilliant that the country voted 62 to 38% in favor of this.
Let's say that again. 62 to 38% is a landslide in a vote.
In any vote, anywhere. So it is certainly being interpreted as a rejection of the Catholic Church, as a great triumph for the youth movement in Ireland, although it had a lot of support among older people too. And one of the really brilliant parts of the campaign was a lot of viral videos. We showed you a couple of weeks ago part of the campaign about tell your granny to vote, call your granny.
Right.
And a very charming young man actually calling his grandmother on video and having a conversation with her about this. But the video that really went viral in Ireland is an older couple who are a little low energy, but very, very charming. And they just sat down with, did they have a gay kid who asked them to do this?
I don't know the whole story behind them, but you'll see it. I mean, they essentially read their scripts, but they're speaking from the heart.
They have a gay son, Bridget and Patty.
White.
And
is their name.
Yes, thank you. And this video ended up with over 1 million views. So here is one of
And there's only 4.7 million people in the whole country.
So here is one of the most important factors in the yes vote in Ireland for same-sex marriage.
Hello, I'm Bridget.
And I'm Paddy. We are voting for equal marriage. We hope you will vote with us.
We're from Dundalk, we're Roman Catholics, and we will be 50 years married this year. We wish other couples, gay or straight, could legally avail of civil marriage and have the opportunity to experience the love, protections and companionship that we have experienced.
20 years ago, I probably would have voted no. But now that I know gay people and see the love and joy they can bring to life, and I will be voting yes. We worked hard for civil rights in Northern Ireland in the 60s. Now it is time to support civil rights in the South.
We're grandparents and would wish that all our grandchildren are protected and treated as equals in the playground and in the eyes of the law.
I'd ask you to take time to consider and reflect on something. It could happen sometime in the future that your son or daughter, grandchild or great-grandchild will tell you they are gay. And when they ask you how you voted in this referendum, or whether you bothered to vote at all, what will you tell them? Will you tell them you tried to make a difference?
We have the opportunity to change things for the better. I know the ever-loving God that we believe in will say we did the right thing, and the Christian thing, and voting yes for marriage equality.
We ask you to vote with us.
And they haven't been excommunicated. I mean, the church has really had a back up on this. In fact, the Archbishop, they were against it. There was a survey.
I'm just not sure they backed up that much.
There was a survey that said they think at least 1/3 of priests, Catholic priests, voted for it. They almost came out for it in a vote.
And the Vatican Secretary of State called it a defeat for humanity.
Yeah, you keep saying that, and you keep driving people away, because what the Archbishop reflected after the vote was, he said, this is a wake-up call for the church. I don't know what it's going to make them do. He says we're essentially losing young people. There's nothing we have to offer them if we're going to keep up with this stuff.
To them, there's still a big wide world of people that they're appealing to who they think are not doing this. But
sorry, he didn't say wake up call. He said reality check. Actually, that's the quote.
So that video.
But the Irish people said yes, yes, I will.
After, and again, yes, I will. So after seeing that stunning video and a lot of other stuff, what happened was this enormous uprising, and not only in Ireland, but it turns out that you can't vote by mail, you can't vote online, you have to actually show up at the polls to vote in Ireland. And so Irish people who were living all over the world went home to vote in Ireland.
From Australia, obviously from England, where there are a lot, etc.
From Canada, Kenya, Ethiopia, Germany, Thailand. People came from the U.S., of course. Hozier, the Irish singer who did the Take Me to Church big hit song, came home to vote. People came from Australia. So we have a video news coverage of people. They had a Home to Vote campaign, and this is what happened.
There's a special announcement for those customers who are heading home to Ireland today. Today's your opportunity to make a difference, to give you support for Ireland's gay marriage referendum. And give everyone their entitlement to marry the person that they love without prejudice.
I made up my mind that I wanted to go home and vote in the referendum, and I figured other people might be in the same frame of mind. So I quickly put together a website called Get the Vote to Vote, encouraging vote-eligible Irish citizens abroad to come home and participate in the referendum.
The Irish people who are returning home to vote are all people who've left within the past 18 months, so they're eligible to vote. Other people who are disenfranchised after 18 months are coming back to support it. There's some English people who are friends of friends coming home to support it too here. It's a hugely emotive thing. A lot of Irish emigrants do plan to return to their country, so they want it to be a more welcoming place that they can be proud of.
I'm still very nervous. I have moments where I picture if we're standing there at 3 p.m. tomorrow afternoon and by a small margin we don't get a yes vote, so we get a no vote, and so that still fills me with nerves. But I think what has happened, regardless of the result, is that an amazing movement has taken place. People have been galvanised to effect change, and that, even outside of LGBT issues, is a massive thing for Irish people.
There could be some secret no voters in our midst, but as far as I'm aware, everyone travelling with us today is voting yes, and I'm not aware of any organised campaign to get no voters home. They may well be coming home to vote, but I haven't encountered any.
A healthy society embraces all of the citizens in that society equally, and that's all this referendum is about. It's about equality, it's about civil marriage, civil rights. So for me, when I marched last August with my friends in Dublin in the March for Marriage, I really did hope that it would be the last time that we'd walk in the streets of Dublin and that I would have more rights than my gay friends. So being here on a boat about to come into Dublin port, for me is the final leg of a journey for equality, which began really long before I was even born.
So you can see it's a lot more than just about marriage for folks. It's about not wanting to go home to a country where, you know, you've been rejected by your neighbors, so they got in gear and they got their neighbors on board for this. I mean, 42 of the 43 constituencies in Ireland voted. Every county voted for it. It was only one little constituency we only lost narrowly in Roscommon.
And I look at tape like that, and it really gives me hope for the future. Yeah. That is such energy among the young population to come out for civil rights. It's just amazing.
It's inspiring to the world.
It is.
And you know, yes, there was a popular vote, and we won. I do make the point that 2 of our states voted for same-sex marriage, and they both have more people than Ireland, Washington State and Maryland, and also Maine did, but they don't have as many people as Ireland does.
You've been reading census figures.
Yes, I did. I did a lot of research.
And this movement in Ireland actually was started technically by a middle-aged lesbian couple who first...
Now an older gay couple.
Yes, who sued for marriage rights. And
well, they had gotten married in Canada in 2003. Yes, and they came home and they tried to get it recognized, and they were rejected because it's in the Constitution.
Right. So that started the whole process of then deciding to have a vote on the Constitution. So there's a lovely little piece of video of them being able to vote and finally acquiring the rights to their marriage.
So first off, is it an emotional day?
Oh, it is profoundly emotional. You kind of vacillate though until the final vote is cast. You know, one can't settle into the extraordinary moment it will be when we get a yes.
It's just an enormous day for us, it really is, and I believe so much that the Irish people will vote yes for equality, a republic of equals, a republic of love. You know, I just can't even begin to imagine what we're going to feel like towards tomorrow, and we're just hoping and praying that the result will be the right way.
Well, we're on the cusp of extraordinary change. We are literally standing on the brink as a new Ireland is born. and a new Ireland, not simply for the minority that this profoundly concerns, but for all the people of Ireland. We can stand tall together, and that is why now I'm delighted that it is a referendum. Nobody can claim the victory, nobody can be singled out. It is the people who will be named. The people of Ireland have given birth to a new Ireland, where this prejudice that has so indented our history will be terminated. So yes, we're holding our head up high in hope.
You can see why I married her.
Well,
very inspiring.
Extremely inspiring, and really wonderful to have that analysis right there of what it means. Now, it's been such a wave of popularity as this has happened that the government is moving up the effective date of the legality of marriages.
Well, the woman, and I apologize for not remembering her name, the woman in the video with the American accent is actually an Irish senator, and it's the Senate that has to vote on it now in Ireland. The Parliament has already voted, and they allowed the referendum, and now the Senate votes on it, and then there's, and also once they put it into effect, there is a 3-month waiting period for marriages.
Yes, but people who are already married elsewhere like them will get their marriages recognized immediately. People in civil unions will be allowed to convert immediately.
But the 3-month wait is also another Catholic throwback, you know, to the bans of marriage being announced in the church and all that kind of stuff.
They're manipulating that, though, in some way, too. They thought it would take till maybe the end of the year to do this, or at least October, but they're now thinking maybe they can do it by August. They're also, as this momentum continues, they're now talking about updating non-discrimination laws for sexual orientation and gender identity for schools and hospitals. Although it's a little confusing about what kind of religious exemption will be allowed to stand, but it seems to be that they're, again, moving to confine some of the religious right to ignore discrimination.
Another aspect of this is that a change in gender, if you go through a transition, will have no effect on your marriage. You will still be married. Civil partnerships will continue. What else?
Well, I think that's about it for Ireland. But what this has also done
it's got the whole world talking.
Exactly. Italy is talking. Italy is one of the outliers in Europe, and they have basically nothing, but now they are talking about civil unions coming soon to Italy. Not marriage yet, but some form of legalization of same-sex partnerships.
And we thought that Germany might move then from civil partnerships to marriage, but the spokesperson for Angela Merkel said no. It's not on our agenda.
Even though 75% of the population of Germany does support same-sex marriage.
And Poland shelved their civil partnership bill for both heterosexual and homosexual couples.
Australia, however, the pressure is growing on Tony Abbott, the Prime Minister, who now says he's the only one in his family who doesn't support same-sex marriage. He does have an out lesbian sister who's married.
Who has called on him to have a conscience vote in the Parliament on this, and we're very close on that.
Yeah, we are. More and more members of the Parliament, more and more parties are moving ahead on submitting bills, allowing party votes. So it looks like Australia is on the verge. And there's an interesting news report from there about a lesbian couple who want to get married but can't wait for it to become legal in Australia because one of them is very sick. So they went to New Zealand to get married, and we thought we'd show you that news report.
Thousands of gay and lesbian couples are waiting for the day that they can get married in Australia, but for some, waiting is simply not an option.
Sandra and Lee have been together for nearly 30 years.
I just love her. She's just a beautiful, kind, generous, compassionate person.
Oh, and I like Sandra for lots of reasons, mainly her cakes. She's just great. I love her dearly.
The pair want to get married, but two things stand in their way. This.
Marriage is between a man and a woman.
And this.
Oh, I've got a goiter that's strangling my windpipe and trachea, and it's growing larger.
Lee might have just weeks to live. The Tasmanian couple simply don't have time to wait for the politicians to change their minds.
When can we get married? Lee's dying to get married. There isn't anywhere for us. How long is it going to be? How long is it going to take for it all to get passed?
There's a few things on your bucket list, and one of them was to get married, and it was very important to me.
Time running out, the couple have decided to tie the knot across the Tasman, where gay marriage is legal.
I've pretty much organised everything.
But perhaps the hardest thing to organise was finance. The trip was going to be expensive, and so the couple turned to the online crowdfunding website GoFundMe. They were blown away with the response.
All around the world, Malaysia, USA, England, Canada, everywhere, just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful comments and very generous donations to support us and help us with our quest.
They raised more than $11,000 in less than 3 weeks. Not quite enough for Sandra and Lee's family and friends to attend, but enough to make their wedding wish a reality. Last week, the pair flew out to New Zealand.
May you live rich and full lives together. You may kiss your most beautiful bride.
Lee and Sandra still struggle to comprehend why they couldn't get married at home.
Australia's supposed to be a go-ahead country. It's not that far advanced. They don't recognise same-sex marriage.
But say now that they are married, they couldn't be happier.
People have been so beautiful to us. It's everything. I mean, it's what we want, isn't it?
Yes, it's incredible.
That's a very emotional way to put the argument, but I think the nation still wants to have a conversation. It's just not going to happen like that. I think there are a lot of people who want it to happen, a lot of people who don't want it to happen. And you see a story like that, and I feel very sorry for them that she's in such a bad way in her health. But, you know, a lot of people quite strongly feel the other way.
But the polls actually suggest that there's actually quite a big majority supporting it. What's actually happening is the parliament doesn't match the public. That's what's actually happening. And the way that party politics gets in the way of that vote being able to reflect the public.
And one nice thing that I like, I've gone to a lot of heterosexual weddings at the moment, and before their vows, a lot of those couples have chosen to put in their vows and say, we really appreciate the fact that we are able to get married today, and we look forward to the day when all Australians, no matter what their sexual preference, are able to get married. And I think that's happening more and more.
I think it's an age thing as well. And I know, Steve, you might not agree with me, but I think all my group of friends are so strongly supportive of marriage equality.
So get it done.
Sorry, there was a little scratchy audio on that, but didn't that conservative look like an idiot? Also, in this wave, Greenland's parliament has just legalized same-sex marriage. 27 votes for. 2 people didn't show up to vote. No votes against. Unanimous support from the Greenland Parliament.
And we told you that Slovenia passed it back in March, but a referendum qualified to stop it. And so now the Slovenian Constitutional Court has to resolve this because they actually have a provision that says you can't vote on human rights laws, as we said. They have to decide whether this is a human right, I guess.
It's also confusing. But back in the United States of America, in Alabama, you know that they have been going back and forth between the federal judge who wants to legalize same-sex marriage and the state judges like Roy Moore who are trying to prevent it and tell probate judges they don't have to issue licenses or do marriages. Well, now the federal judge, Callie Grenade, has ruled in a class action suit that all probate judges must issue licenses to same-sex couples.
But she's putting it on hold until the Supreme Court rules, and Judge Roy Moore has said, well, if the Supreme Court rules, I'm going to have to go along with it, right?
Maybe. He may still try to find a way around it. I think they're talking about outlawing, marriage licenses altogether.
Judge Grenade was trying to remind Judge Moore of the Supremacy Clause. And it's not about white supremacy, it's about the supremacy of federal courts over state courts.
We told you last week that Texas had basically killed its anti-same-sex marriage proposed bills in the bad legislature, and then we were afraid they'd come back as amendments attached to other bills. But the good news this week is that, again, it looks like it's not going to happen. They may have a debate for show. They also killed the proposed adoption religious exemption bill. So all the scary bills in Texas, or some of the scary bills, seem to be disappearing.
Oh, and I don't think I put this on the list, but I hope you have. Do you have the picture in there of the Utah couple who got same-sex married? Did we give this to you?
These were
they are.
The plaintiffs in the Utah marriage case.
Derek Kitchen and Moody Smetty. They were married in front of 1,000 people downtown at the Gallivan Center Plaza. This was Judge Shelby's decision in their case, which was the first to go to the Supreme Court, which allowed it to stand. So it was quite a breakthrough, but the boys waited they're in their mid-20s, they waited a few months in order to get married and did it in style.
And then a little history question. You remember the lesbian couple in Kennebunkport, Maine, who were friends of the Bushes, got married, and George H.W. Bush, the elder, showed up as a witness at the wedding and attended the wedding. Well, now it turns out that someone is reporting
Boston Globe.
that George W. Bush, you remember him, he's the one who won the presidency by putting anti-same-sex marriage proposals on ballots around the country.
When his campaign manager was Ken Mailman, a closeted gay man at the time.
And Karl Rove was running the campaign. Well, when these lesbians got married in Kennebunkport in 2013, the rumor is that he was asked to officiate the wedding.
And he said sure.
He said sure, and then he had a conflict and he couldn't show up. And so now, after this story was published, his people were asked, really? Is that really what happened?
We don't remember that, but we don't remember a lot of things because, you know, back to whatever.
Whatever.
But the story also said that Jeb Bush, after a quick game of golf, usually patronizes their general store of these lesbians. Wait till that gets out, Jeb. It's out now.
Ted Cruz is having dinner with gay men. It's
and then there's the whole thing.
You know, there's been hypocritical thing to do.
We told you about the whole thing about the scandal about the study that said about changing minds on same-sex marriage. It doesn't really happen in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, some other researchers, Brian Harrison of Yale and Melissa Michelson of Menlo College, found that the best way to change minds, and they have done a study on this, is through a messenger from a like demographic. That's the thing that works the best. You want to reach the sports community, you get a sports star. You want to reach the African American community, use African Americans.
I think that's been our strategy all along. All right, in other news, in New Orleans, Mayor Mitch Landrieu has countered Governor Bobby Jindal. You remember him and his executive order allowing religious exemptions from any discrimination law. Well, Mayor Landrieu has issued a non-discrimination executive order of his own for city employees and contractors with the city that forbids discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity.
And the Tourism Bureau, which is very unhappy with Governor Jindal, reminds us that there were no pending cases of a Louisiana business engaging in discrimination against same-sex weddings, and they accused Jindal of issuing a political document. Oh, really?
Really? And back in Alabama, it looks like the religious freedom bills there, which would, you know, allow discrimination on the basis of deeply held religious beliefs against people getting married or adopting, are dead. The legislature in Alabama is not going to pass them.
In Indiana, the state has been ordered to pay $1.4 million in plaintiff attorney's fees. Your tax dollars at work in the same-sex marriage case. I mean, because when the state defends against these things, they have no chance of winning, and they know it, really. They're just wasting taxpayer money, so now they have to pay the plaintiffs' lawyers. And in Indianapolis, Mayor Greg Ballard, who also stood up to Governor Pence there over his anti-gay stuff, is going to be the Grand Marshal of the Indiana Pride Parade on June 13th.
Congratulations.
Republican.
In Maryland, the legislature has passed a number of bills that are helpful in making insurance companies pay for fertility treatments.
As a benefit, yeah.
And easing changing your gender marker on birth certificates. The governor is a new Republican governor.
Larry Hogue. Hogan, you're right. Hogan.
Who, when he campaigned, was trying to be sort of LGBT friendly, but he's decided he's not going to say anything about these bills. He's not going to veto them, but he's not going to sign them.
But they go into effect.
Yes, he's just going to let them go
gives
into
consent.
Effect. Yes, but he doesn't want to really talk about it.
And well, let's talk about, are we done with state legislation?
Yes.
Well, except that we're going to talk about the Boy Scouts now, I guess.
Okay.
Robert Gates, the former Secretary of Defense, is the head of the Boy Scouts for a couple of years now, and initially didn't want to do anything about allowing gay scoutmasters. We're not going to talk about that. Well, he gave a speech at the annual meeting in Atlanta, and he said the current rules cannot be sustained. And he got a standing ovation for this, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. So he said the courts could force change if we don't act. Now, so he is talking about moving toward, he didn't do it right away, but he is talking towards allowing openly gay scoutmasters. They've already allowed openly gay scouts.
Well, he's suggesting that maybe the solution is, this is just sort of brainstorming out loud on his part, maybe the solution is a local option, that chapters that want to hire or empower openly LGBT scoutmasters can do so, and those that don't want to don't have to.
Well, the key is that New York hired some kid who graduated from sort of Eagle Scout to Scout, working for the Scouts, and the national office does not seem to be making a move against him.
Well, that is one of the things he said explicitly, that the national office will not challenge chapters that do allow LGBT adult leaders.
He made kind of a nasty remark, Gates, and he said, we must deal with the world as it is, not as we might wish it to be, meaning anti-gay.
Yeah, I didn't like that either.
And he said, any other alternative will be the end of us as a movement. Now, in other words, these anti-gay religions run most of the troops.
70%. 70%
Catholics
are
and Mormons.
Catholics and Mormons. And here's my question. He says, we have to do it or the courts will do it, whether we like it or not. Now, the Supreme Court ruled years ago that the Boy Scouts had the right to their own religious freedom, basically.
This was in 2000. It was a 5-4 decision.
So I've
heard
many versions, but I believe it was a 5-4 decision. But they were ruled to have a religious point of view and that they could exercise that by discriminating against gay people. So I don't understand why he thinks the courts are now going to force the Boy Scouts to not discriminate.
I think partly because they've gotten a little pregnant on the issue, where they are allowing gay scouts and things.
But I would think there is a difference between membership as a scout and leadership as a, I'm talking about possible legal interpretations. I'm not advocating for this.
I understand that. But it's I hate to say it, but it sort of reminds me of the golf decision where they had to rule whether a pro could use a cart between shots because he had a disability, and then the court got into the fact, well, you do allow carts in certain circumstances, and it's not essential to the game. And if the Scouts have already said
to not use cards.
So if the Scouts have already said, well, it's okay to be a gay Scout, then the court might say, well, then what is your problem here?
I won't explicate the conservative point of view, but I just thought it was interesting that he's worried about court decisions when the Supreme Court has given them this freedom.
The conservative view has been expressed. It's going to lead to pedophilia in the Scouts. That's ridiculous. But Senator Brad Hoylman has blasted the state Senate, our senator, by the way, for honoring the Boy Scouts with official license plates. He calls it a license to discriminate, and he hopes that the Assembly will reject it. Now, here's the thing. Let's not go all soft on this now. This is still going to be a largely discriminatory organization.
Yes.
They still should not get public funds if they're a private religious organization that discriminates just because they've lifted the ban for a few chapters.
Yes, local option is not a solution.
But let me tell you, I'm betting the money is going to start flowing from the local governments again.
Maybe to the local chapters that don't discriminate. And Senator Brad Hoylman has introduced a bill in the New York State Legislature that would acknowledge that a lot of military veterans were discharged for their sexual orientation or gender identity, and says that if that is why they were discharged, their cases should be reviewed to make sure they're getting the proper benefits. That a lot of veterans who were discharged for nothing more than their sexual orientation or gender identity are being denied benefits because they got less than honorable discharges.
Well, can't the president do something about that on the national level in terms of an executive order, maybe, and say?
Why don't you suggest that to him?
Barack, if you're watching, and I know you or some of your people are, let's get on the case here.
22 U.S. senators have written a letter to the Secretary of Defense asking that there be a formal non-discrimination rule applied to the armed forces for sexual orientation to complete the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Because when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was repealed, they did not add non-discrimination to what a military code of justice or whatever it is, because they were afraid that people would object that that was special rights for LGBT service members, or I should say LGB, since transgender people are not formally allowed to serve. And so now there is a movement to say, wait a minute, you really need an explicit non-discrimination rule in the armed forces because we're sort of over the fact that we repealed this and nothing big has happened. Right. And a transgender Army veteran, Sherry Swakowski, has said that she will attend the Department of Defense Pride event in June wearing an Army women's uniform, which to sort of make clear that transgender people did serve, are serving, and deserve to be able to serve legally.
Right. There's a Mormon group that's sympathetic to gays. It's called Mormons Building Bridges, but they've been denied the opportunity to march in two of the big parades out there in Utah, the Days of 47 and Provo's Freedom Festival. Days of 47 says it doesn't admit advocacy groups. It sounds like the way they keep gay Irish groups out of the St. Patrick's Day parade. It commemorates the Mormon entry into the Salt Lake Valley. That's on June 7th. Maybe we will have to protest. June 7th is also Pride Day in Queens, New York.
In San Francisco, our favorite Archbishop, Cordileone, wants teachers, all teachers in Catholic schools, reclassified as ministers so that he can fire them all if they come out or if they just support gay rights.
Desperate to discriminate.
It's unbelievable. The parents of these Catholic school kids are standing up to object to this.
Good. Well, that's the big change that's happened in society, is that the kids and the parents stand up and say this is nonsense.
Yeah, as it is.
All right.
Sports news. One footnote. We told you last week that Seton Hall had a discrimination case going, and
no, it was the Catholic campus minister who was fired for coming out for gay rights.
And yet they were recruiting an out gay basketball player, Derek Gordon, who was transferring from the University of Massachusetts. Well, he is going to Seton Hall. And he said a number of schools didn't want me because I'm gay. But Seton Hall does?
Football is much more important than doctrine.
Well, that was basketball.
Basketball, sorry. Yeah. Well, let's talk about football because Michael Sam, the first out gay guy drafted by the NFL, what was cut there has been signed to the Montreal Alouettes for a 2-year deal. This is in the Canadian Football League.
Now, I'll remind you that Doug Flutie, a big, actually a small Boston College star who went on to success in the NFL, had to go to the CFL first to establish himself as a pro player before he could then go into the NFL. And so Michael Sam going to the Canadian Football League gives him a chance at least to prove himself.
How do you say this guy's name? Dabo Swinney? He is the Clemson coach who appeared at a benefit for an anti-gay hate group, the Palmetto Family Council. Look, he's going to do it on June 2nd.
Tony Dungy, who coached the Indianapolis Colts for years, was a huge homophobe. There's a lot of that going around, a lot of Christian ministry in sports. Right. But in gay sports, the Gay Games and the Gay and Lesbian International Sports Association, which runs the Out Games, will unite for the 2022 One World event, so they're coming back together.
Do you think we'll be around in 2022?
No promises. All right. And what about those Duggars? What about the Duggars?
Oh, my goodness. And what can we say about it? I think I might have even put them under entertainment news because they're so wacky.
Well, they concealed son Josh's molestation.
This is 19 kids and counting. If you're, this is a TLC show.
Yes. 13 years ago, when he was a teenager, he admitted to molesting 5 girls, 3 or 4 of whom were his sisters.
Oh, my goodness.
His mother is famous for statements like transgender people are child molesters.
And he has resigned from his post at the Family Research Council.
Yeah,
and Mike Huckabee is standing by him.
Well, here's the thing. Here's their line.
His picture is with almost every other Republican presidential candidate.
Josh says that this was his long ago past. They took him to authorities who refused to
limitations up?
Yes.
Arkansas.
They refused to. They refused to prosecute him. They sent him out to work construction as his rehab years ago.
I'll take care of it.
Well,
that usually
here's
takes
the thing.
care of it.
We don't. My question, of course, is: are these 5 that he admitted to the only victims? What has been done for them? What is he doing now? And was this really a momentary lapse, or is this more long-standing?
Well,
with
TLC
him?
Suspended the show,
Absolutely.
and then the sponsors started dropping off like flies.
Here's my favorite part of it. In 2006, 4 years after this supposedly happened, or after he got caught and he was taken to the authorities and they declined to prosecute, the family was scheduled to be on the Oprah show.
Oh, yeah.
And someone tipped off the Oprah show and said, because they knew about the arrest or the possible prosecution, because there were public records about that. And so someone called the Oprah show and said, you may not want to have these people on because this is what Josh has done. And to their everlasting credit, the Oprah people not only canceled the appearance, but called the authorities and turned them in. And that's when they discovered that the statute of limitations had run out. But they stepped up.
Well, the question is, what did TLC know about this, and when did they know it?
Yes. They knew about it. They knew about it before they put them on the air.
Well,
yeah.
There should be some liability there.
Yeah.
All right.
But at any rate, the whole point of this is that these are hypocrites who have been campaigning against same-sex marriage.
Transgender people, horrible things they've been saying.
Horrible defamation of transgender people as child molesters.
Remove the sty from the plank from your own eye, not the sty, the plank.
This has brought them closer to God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of anti-gay religious people, that anti-gay minister who was exposed as a gay grinder user, Matt Michaela, once told a teen boy, Tyler Kish, according to his mom, if he was going to go to hell for being gay, then he might as well go to hell by just committing suicide. This is what he said to the kid. And the kid went on television and had the support of his mother. And the kid says, love conquers all, and he's forgiven the minister. I don't know if I'm ready to.
No. And a very sad story out of San Diego where young trans boy, Kyler Prescott, 14 years old, did end his life.
He was a marriage equality activist, an animal rights activist. This was the 3rd such suicide in the San Diego area this year. He had a supportive family. He came out a few years ago, but he struggled with puberty, and he was involved with a youth group. And one of the quotes from the story said, "Your body doesn't match the image of what you feel it should match, and that becomes very difficult for your mental health. And the dysphoria can be overwhelming." So even if you're getting emotional support, what you're going through physically...
Imagine going through all this as young teenagers.
So put up the lifelines there, the Trans Lifeline, 877-565-8860, and the suicide hotline for the Trevor Project for support for LGBT youth, 866-488-7386.
I think we're missing a digit on there. Look up Trevor Project and you'll get the full phone number.
866-488-7386.
And in California, the Transgender Law Center and Equality, get the incomplete number off there, thank you, and Equality California are going to do a major statewide public education campaign, and a lot of it is going to be about training transgender and transsexual people to speak publicly, because as we have found across the board, when people speak publicly about their personal experience, it does change minds, and so that is going to be a new push.
And the ACLU
California
is trying to change the mind of Michigan. They're suing about the policy that makes it impossible to change your gender for many on their driver's licenses and other forms of ID.
But in California, transgender inmate Michelle Norsworthy, who has been petitioning for surgery, the court has decided that the surgery should be delayed, but she may be paroled soon, so she may be able to take care of it outside of prison.
Did we do the new Gallup poll on is everybody gay? Everybody thinks everybody's gay?
No, but this happens periodically.
Well, you know, they asked.
We don't have an infinite amount of time.
1/3 of Americans think that 25% of the population is gay.
And I think that 80% of the population is bisexual.
Gay and bisexual.
Right.
Yes.
No, 90% when we add gay.
Okay.
But a vast possibility of same-sex attraction or opposite-sex attraction. Anyway, back to international news.
Right.
Very interesting cover story in the, not cover story, but substantial story in the New York Times Sunday Magazine last week on a very brave activist in Belize who seems to be operating all on his own, Caleb Orozco. He's the one who has challenged the
that's him with his supportive mother.
Yeah.
He's 41.
Anti-sodomy laws in Belize.
This is the first challenge in the Caribbean to the sodomy laws, legal challenge. It's been going on for 7 years.
Yeah.
The case was heard finally 2 years ago. I mean, and the courts will not issue a decision. Well,
everybody hates him.
He has a life where he can only go out for about 10 minutes a day. His name, Orozco, has become an anti-gay slur. Things are thrown at his house all the time and at him all the time. And his mother said to the reporter when he was out of the room, no matter how this case comes out, he's going to be killed.
It's a fascinating and very sad read. If you look up the New York Times Sunday Magazine from last weekend, you can read all about Caleb Orozco.
And he won't leave Belize because he says he loves his family, but I think we should be doing something for him.
That would be nice. We've told you that the U.S. State Department hired a few weeks ago a new LGBT rights global envoy, Randy Berry.
First stop, Jamaica.
And he's going to visit Uganda in July. He's going to visit 15 countries in the next month.
Well, when he visited, there was a big press story about the Minister of Justice saying, we're not going to change the anti-buggery laws, but we don't discriminate against anybody. We treat everybody well. And then Randy Berry says, well, we didn't press them on the anti-buggery laws, but I think you should be pressing them about it.
Well, it's very hard to know whether you become overbearing when you press people.
I think it's
and you're the United States.
I think it's a very basic kind of a thing. If you're going to have this
certainly
job.
suggest that might be the thing to do.
Scruff has added an app when you are cruising in a country where homosexual acts are illegal.
Or dangerous. So check in with them. Interesting story pointed out by a viewer. In the United Kingdom, men collect pensions at age 65, women at 62 and a half. That's strange to begin with.
For the moment, they're working on equalizing that and raising the age, unfortunately.
But shouldn't men get them first if women live longer?
Given what women have gone through in this world, I mean, I think they should get it when they're 20.
But here's the twist. Transgender women have to collect as men at age 65.
Yes.
This is just unbelievable discrimination. But as Andy says, they're going to equalize these for everybody by 2019. So hang around.
There is hope. Tunisia, the Interior Ministry has recognized an LGBT group, and that's a first.
It's called Shams. Whatever that is.
Unfortunate name.
In Kyrgyzstan, a group of LGBT people celebrating the International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia were attacked not only by a gang of brutes, but then by the cops who arrested the activists and took them to the local police station. In Hong Kong, British women are suing because their civil partnership is not recognized by Hong Kong for visa purposes. In Kazakhstan, they killed the no gay propaganda bill because they want the Olympics in the Winter Olympics in 2022. And they've been under a lot of pressure because of all the pressure we put on Russia last year over their horrible anti-gay laws. And 27 LGBT and ally athletes had written a letter to the International Olympic Committee saying, don't give Kazakhstan the Olympics because they're going to pass this law. So then they didn't pass the law, which is amazing.
You think we can pry away the World Cup from Qatar and Russia in the future?
Don't hold your breath.
After the scandal, well, the big scandals.
Who knows?
Payoff scandals.
Yes, exactly.
AIDS news.
AIDS news. For many years, there's been a study called START. I can't tell you what the acronym stands for, but it's been investigating for many years what is the proper time to start treatment if you acquire HIV. Should you start early? Should you wait and start later? Are there implications for taking drugs for many years and therefore you should wait? Or will you do better if you start early? Well, latest results are out and they say start early. You can suppress the virus. That means you're not transmitting it. You're healthier.
You become undetectable.
Exactly. So another reason to get tested, catch it as early as possible, and start treatment.
Yes, and be sure you tell your partners if you have HIV if you live in Missouri. Well, you know the story about
Please
the guy
practice safer sex.
Of course, everybody practice safer sex.
Okay. Entertainment news.
Well, last week it was Cate Blanchett clarifying her past relationships with women, that they were not sexual. Now, English actor Tom Hardy, we have a picture of him. Last year, we really gave him a lot of credit because he readily acknowledged sexual relations with men. He said, "I'm an actor, for F's sake," he said.
And I have tattoos.
So he clarifies that, well, he does not regret his admission. "I have never put my penis in a man," he says, "and I've never had the other in my rear."
I'm glad we're at the end of the show.
Quote him at things, etc. So, but he said it doesn't do it for me. So next week on the Clarifiers, we'll have Queen Latifah.
Don't hold your breath for that one either. I am angry.
No, go ahead.
I have to watch the darn Kardashians to follow this Bruce Jenner stuff. Oh my God! You know, I'd never seen an episode of it in my life.
Right. I couldn't have picked them out of a lineup.
Well, that makes you worse than me.
I am worse than you.
But I watch a lot of bad reality TV, but I draw the line somewhere, and certainly the Kardashians were below the line. So. But they've been carrying the Bruce Jenner storyline into the actual Keeping Up with the Kardashians series. So now we see the family on a daily basis reacting to Bruce's transition beyond just the Diane Sawyer interview.
And this was done before the Diane Sawyer interview, wasn't it?
It was.
See, I know something because I watched the show.
Points for Andy. So it's interesting. It's interesting, and it's a little tough to hear their reluctance or their concerns. But it's not terrible, and they're working it out on air, and that's a good thing. So even though I resent having to watch this, I feel it is my duty to do so.
You're taking one for the team, Ann.
Oh, God, I am. The 8-part reality series, which will focus on his actual transition, taped after the Diane Sawyer interview, will start on July 26th. Mark your calendars.
Now, we've told you how much we love Fun Home, and it's a tough ticket in New York, but you know, it is the best show on Broadway, play or musical. Well, they're going to have a national tour. That's why we're telling you about it in the 2016-17 season, and it's once again going to be restaged. I mean, it's a new staging on Broadway, which I prefer, but it's going to be restaged for the 4th time, still directed by Sam Gold.
I've seen all 3 iterations, the original workshop, the Public Theater proscenium stage, and now the Broadway Circle in the Square, and I think it just keeps getting better. But people are surprised it's touring, because here you have a story of a now lesbian in college having sex with her roommate or friend, her father, who's a closeted gay man who ultimately kills himself. Now, there's an enormous amount of humor, there's great music, it's terrific, but it's a very provocative show. Well, and people were not sure that it would tour, but theater owners from around the country came to see it and talk about it, and they are dying to put it on.
When you get the elevator speech about the show, I guess you could say, that sounds a little off-putting for mainstream audiences in some way. But Sweeney Todd is about somebody slitting people's throats and making meat pies out of it, and it's one of the greatest shows that ever come on. So I mean,
it's true.
I mean, I am not supporting this show, just because it's a lesbian-themed show.
No, it's fantastic.
Theater has to be good for me to praise it, and this is a wonderful, show. I mean, I was very moved by the mother in the show, one of the only heterosexuals in the show. So it's just a great show.
It is.
That's all. And, Pride marches are coming up around the country. Did you know that this is going to be Pride Month this June? You can, if you want to know if there's one near you, anywhere in the world, you can go to seasonsofpride.com, seasonsofpride.com, and find out.
Or you can be like the Lesbian Herstory Archives here in New York, which has decided no more Pride Parade. Too commercial, irrelevant, we don't like it anymore. We'll do the Dyke March the night before, but we're skipping the Pride Parade this year.
I know the feeling. I've been out there with it since 1974. It has gotten too commercial. I've always looked, however, at the people on the sidelines who are having such a good time, who are so enthusiastic, and it makes me lose some of my reservations about it.
Oh, I agree with that, but I think we have both said for years that we really miss it being a march, a protest march, or a political march.
Well, the last time they did that really was 1977, after we lost with Anita Bryant.
A couple of movies out on DVD that I want to recommend. One called Eat With Me, which is a Chinese-American mother and her gay son. George Takei has a cute little cameo. Nicole Sullivan, who's a pretty well-known comedian, has a major part. It's a small movie. It's cute. Eat With Me is what it's called. And Boy Meets Girl, which we've recommended, transgender teenager, that's out on DVD too.
And congratulations to our transgender viewer and activist, Julie Daffy D, who was being honored in the Twin Cities Pride Parade in Minnesota.
It could be Daffyd.
It's
We're not sure of the pronunciation.
Should have gotten that from Joe.
And you may want to go see the exhibit at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, the Nazi Persecution of Homosexuals, 1933 to 45. It opens May 29th through October 2nd. Very highly regarded exhibition at the Museum of Jewish Heritage.
And I recommend the Jacob Lawrence exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art.
And we mourn the death of Anne Meara.
Oh, Anne Meara, terrific, and very, very pro-gay, and did a lot of AIDS benefits as well. We loved her.
See you next week.